Hi, I'm David Nanto, and this is Welcome to the Theater. Today we're going to talk with a few cast members and the director of a show that is going to be up on Theater 3's stage in June. And then in this series we'll be looking at shows that are being produced locally here in Acton and learn about the plays and the people that are involved in them. And today we have Ed Knights, who is affiliated with Theater 3. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And so, Ed, tell us how you are involved with Theater 3.
I'm the president of the group. I've been involved with Theater 3 since 1981 when I was in the show Oklahoma as a cowboy. Didn't know what to do with my hands. The director said, "Well, you're a cowboy, stick them in your belt." And I later saw the video, and sure enough, my thumbs were in my belt for the entire show.
There you go. That's good.
Yeah.
So when did Theater 3 get started?
Theater 3 was started by a combination of three different groups that were using performing space that was a former Unitarian church. It's a gorgeous old building next to the fire station in West Acton, and in the 1960s these groups combined together to form Theater 3.
Oh, okay. What is this particular play?
So this play is called Heroes, and it's a translation from the French, and it's about three World War I veterans in an old soldier's home outside Paris who are plotting their escape from the nuns. The play reading committee picked this play because it was the 100th anniversary of World War I, and also because it was not only funny but also had some poignancy and had some things to say about the men who've suffered in the war.
So have you been involved with the theater? I know you're involved with Theater 3, and both artistically as a director and in the management, the administration of the theater. Have you been involved in theater a long time?
Since I was a child. I've been doing theater off and on ever since then. I was in plays in high school and in college, and then when I was in medical school, I wrote a couple shows and put them on, and when I came out I decided, no, time to learn how to actually do this. I started taking some acting lessons, jazz dance, tap dance, voice lessons at New England Conservatory and BU.
Did that help with your bedside manner?
I think it was good for the patients to know there was another side to their doctor.
So the play reading committee decided that this was the 100th year anniversary of World War I, and they liked the play. What made you want to get involved and direct it?
I had seen the play done and found it moving as well as funny, and it had some messages that I thought were important about what happens to people after war, and also what the sacrifices that our soldiers made in the two world wars.
It's timely.
Yeah.
It's a timely thing to think about.
I also, both of my grandfathers were in the war, fighting in France, and were altered in a major way by the life events that they went through. One of my grandfathers was in an artillery battery in charge of the horses, and he never talked much about it, but when he came back, I learned he was unable to sleep with a roof over his head, and he had to sleep in a tent in the backyard. Wow. And for the rest of his life, he slept with his service revolver under his pillow every night. And I used to think everybody's grandfather carries around this big gun all the time, but later found out that was not the case. Wow. And my other grandfather drove ambulances for the French, and he didn't even want to come back to the U.S. after the war was over. He was really disillusioned. He'd gone to thinking he'd be making the world safe for democracy, and just dealing with so many injured men altered him in a way that he decided to stay over and do prisoner of war work, and he ended up in the Gaza Strip in Palestine doing prisoner of war work with the Turks, and he stayed there for a couple of years working with the YMCA before coming back and changed his whole life around, went to Yale Divinity School, and became a conscientious objector to war, including World War II, which was not a popular thing to be. He was
certainly at that time.
He was a dean of Brown University, and took in the Japanese and German students who were stranded there into his own house because nobody wanted him in the dormitories.
Wow, so it had his experiences in World War I had a profound effect on him.
Yes.
Through the rest of his life.
And in this play, it's the 3 disabled men, and one of them has PTSD, which certainly both my grandfathers did. And as a primary care doctor, I obviously see people with PTSD, not just from wars, but from childhood abuse or other domestic violence, major accidents that they've been in. And so it kind of closed the loop for me too in having an opportunity to show people what this is really like.
Yeah. So the play takes place after World War I, and the 3 men are together in a, tell me again where they're...
So they are in an old soldiers' home,
okay.
And it's run by the nuns, and
okay.
One of them is convinced that the Mother Superior is going to do him in because he has the same birthday as a new arrival, and it has come to his attention that the healthier of the 2 with the same birthday survives, and the other one tends to die quite quickly after a new arrival.
Oh, okay.
And in addition, that character is convinced that that the stone dog on the patio talks to him and moves about, and so they not only want to escape, but they have to figure out how to bring the dog with them.
So I understand that there's going to be an exhibit at the show in the lobby. Can you tell me about that?
We're going to be having an exhibit of a number of items that have been brought back by my grandfathers from the war, and you'll be seeing them in a little bit.
Oh, great. Is there anything that your grandfathers brought back from the war that's not going to be in this exhibit?
Yes. When I discovered the box in my basement that had come from my aunt's house that had the German helmets and the bayonets in it, I decided one day to dig down to the bottom and discovered that there was a live artillery shell and a device that was a stick and a can on top of it with German writing on it. So I Googled the German writing, discovered it was a hand grenade. It was.
This was in your basement?
This was in my basement, yeah, and it had been in my aunt's basement prior to that. And it was, obviously neither of these were defused, and so I thought, well, that's certainly not safe to have in your basement. So I called the Boxborough police, and I said, I've got this live artillery shell and this German hand grenade from World War I. Can I bring them over there? And they said, oh, no, absolutely not. You cannot bring them over here. Put them in a shoebox in your driveway and leave.
And good luck.
And we're calling the bomb squad.
Yeah.
So we stopped making dinner, climbed in our cars, and as we were pulling out, saw that the neighbors on either side were leaving too. So they evacuated the neighbors as well.
Oh, wow.
And finally cleared the explosive.
Well, thank you. We're excited to see the show coming out. And when is it opening?
First 2 weekends in June, Friday and Saturday night, open seating. Just go to the website theater3.org, or there's tickets at the door as well.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next we're going to talk to Andrew Harrington. Andrew is a technical writer and is playing the role of Philippe in this play. So, Andrew, what made you want to audition for this show?
Well, a number of things. First of all, I wanted to do a full-length show with Theatre 3. I did a couple of short pieces with them in December at their evening of short plays, and I really enjoyed that, liked the people. I was excited about this play because of Tom Stoppard's involvement as the translator of the piece. Stoppard is one of my absolute favourite playwrights, and there's a kind of sort of energy and fizz to his language and his dialogue that is great to perform. And I was also excited to work on a show with a very small cast, a very small ensemble cast where everybody was on stage almost all the time, and I could get an opportunity to really build relationships with the other 2 actors and with the audience each night.
Now, were you involved in, you mentioned high school, were you involved in theater starting in high school? I
did theater in high school, and I did some theater at university at Cambridge. And then I really didn't do any theater for 25 years. I came to the States, I went to graduate school.
What did you study?
I studied English.
Okay.
I have a PhD in English literature from BU. And I did college teaching for a while, and
Yeah.
then I changed careers and married, had a son. Never really thought I had time to do theatre, and then suddenly my son was a high school senior, and I was looking around and saying to myself, well, I have some time now, so maybe...
You were becoming an empty nester.
Yeah, I was becoming an empty nester, and it occurred to me to maybe go out for an audition or two again, and so for the last 3 years I've been working quite a lot.
And how is this show? What's it like working with Ed as the director and the other members of the cast?
Well, it's great working with Ed. He's very easy to work with. I like the way in which he has a clear sense of what he wants to show to be, but is happy to let us explore the roles and try different things out and so on and so forth. I think that's what I always like in a director. Some kind of combination of an underlying vision and some discipline, but a lot of flexibility to allow the cast to find their own way.
Yeah. And as you've explored your role with Philippe, what do you think of him? Tell us about him.
Well, Philippe ought to be a fairly cheerful, happy-go-lucky kind of guy. I think that is his sort of core personality. He likes a joke, he likes making fun of people, he's also basically a kind and sensitive person, I think. But he's been profoundly affected in a number of ways by the war. He suffers regular fainting fits. He's suspicious of other people's motives and behaviors to the point of paranoia. He's very afraid of conflict, which makes the triangle of the three characters kind of difficult, because whenever the other two are in conflict with one another, and he's expected to take sides, he's uncomfortable.
He doesn't like that.
Uncomfortable with that. He's largely estranged from his family. So he really needs the relationships that he has with the other two characters, but they are also relationships that regularly bring out his difficulties. So that's the sort of balance, the kind of tension, the knife edge that he's on all the time. So each of the three characters has to kind of tread gently around the other character's limitations.
What do you think would be interesting for people when they think about what shows to see here this spring? Why should they go see Heroes?
Well, I think there's a very interesting and enjoyable combination of comedy and sort of poignant drama and kind of movement from one of those to the other in unexpected ways as the play goes along. So if you're interested in basically coming and having a good time and getting plenty of laughs for your evening, but also a little bit of extra depth, then
to make you think a little bit.
To make you think a little bit, then I think this is a great show to come and see.
Great. Well, thank you, Philip.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Next, we're going to talk to Brian Schimpf, who plays Henri. Brian, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
So tell me, what do you do in your day job?
Well, I recently retired from IBM. I was a software engineer for about a 40-year career, and one of the wonderful things about being retired is I have a lot more time to pursue these kinds of hobbies, so I'm very excited about that.
You don't really initially think of software engineering and acting in the same vein. Have you acted? Did you act when you were younger, or?
I did. I did some plays in high school and college, and then I think as is typical for a lot of folks, when I was starting my career, I was pretty busy, and there was a long gap where I didn't really do much theater, and then here in Acton, I got involved in community theater through first Open Door and then Theater 3 about 25 years ago, and I've been active ever since.
Oh, wow. Wow. And what made you think about auditioning for this show?
Well, I had worked with Ed before, and I was also very intrigued by this story of these three guys, a very small cast, an opportunity to do a real ensemble piece where there would be a lot of time to explore relationships between these pairs of characters and then the group as a threesome. I read the script, and it's funny, but it has these moments of real human drama, which I think is great for a comedy to really give the audience something to think about, in addition to hopefully give them a few laughs.
Have you? You're at a stage now. You've had your career, and now you're entering into retirement, which is a completely different phase of life. And as you think about that part of your life, is that helpful when you think of these characters who have gone through one big thing in their life and are moving? They're in like a second stage of their life?
I think so. I think so. Of course, I've never been through anything at all comparable to
Sure.
the experience that these guys had in the
Sure.
war. But yeah, I think one of the things that these three guys are exploring is, so where are we now? You know, what is our life going to be like from here to the end of our life? And they do think about the end of life.
They've seen a lot of death.
They've seen a lot of death, and even in the home, there are the experiences where new residents come and residents pass away, and they deal with that and explore that.
And what is Henri like? What's his character like?
Henri is fairly sociable. He likes to get along with people. He's very committed to this threesome, to Gustave and Philippe, and yet he likes to get outside. He likes to go for long walks. He calls them his constitutionals. He wishes that there was more outreach beyond just this little threesome. But Henri is also a kind of a crusty, cantankerous guy. And the other two, in particular Gustave, really knows how to push his buttons, and so he can get very, very testy. And that's been fun for me as an actor, to explore that sort of switch in emotion of being nice one minute and then really cranky and angry the next.
Some people say when you reach a certain stage in life, you're just freer.
I think so. I think Henri sometimes feels he wishes he was a little more in control, but he just flies off the handle pretty quickly.
What does he think? How is his relationship with Philippe?
Well, I think he cares very, very much for both of the other characters that we see in this play. I think these three guys really are committed to each other in very real ways. They are a community. They are each other's family.
Why do you think people should come see this show?
One of the things Ed did, which I think was wonderful, is encourage us to learn more about World War I, especially the American experience in World War I. And I think Americans should know more about World War I than we do. We pay a lot of attention to World War II, the whole greatest generation dynamic. World War I was, I think, a real milestone in the history of this country. Before World War I, the United States was not so much of a world player. And I think it was America's participation in World War I that really established us as a world power. I think Americans ought to know more about that and know more about how we came to be where we are today. And so if this play gives people a laugh, gives people something to think about, and makes them a little more curious about the experience of World War I think that would be wonderful.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, we're back with Ed Knights, who's brought some props that he's going to be using in the play here. And why don't you tell us what you have?
Sure. So both my grandfathers brought back a number of items from the war that we're going to actually use on stage. So I'll show you the ones that were brought back by my mother's father first. This is the watch that he was given by a wounded soldier on the battlefield on Armistice Day, and it has he had engraved into the back of it Day of Peace, November 11th, 1918. This is one of the three medals that he got, and Henri will be wearing this. It's a participation medal for anyone who was fighting with the French army. And he was an American, but he was driving ambulances, rescue French soldiers. This is the compass that he had with him. He kept a journal of every single day that he was over there, and I was looking through the entries, and one of them, it describes him getting lost with an ambulance full of wounded men, and his French was bad enough that he actually had to bring out one of the wounded soldiers to a house to knock on doors to get directions to the hospital he was trying to take them to. My other grandfather, he was the one who was with the artillery battery. This is one of the field maps that he had, and we'll be using this on stage. Just a tobacco pouch that they were actually using to keep various items in. Then the ambulance driver, this was his field cap, and the dog will be wearing this before they go on maneuvers. And you can see his silver star that he was awarded for bravery in moving wounded from the battlefield under fire. And then the helmet here, my other grandfather wore, the one in the artillery battery, and that helmet will be worn by the dog once they go on maneuvers. And those are the props that we're actually using on stage.
And finally today, we're going to talk to Larry Lichtig. I've known Larry for a long time. We met when we were doing a play together years ago. He plays Gustav. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to see you. And so I asked the other folks, what do you do in your day job?
I'm a technical writer. Been at it since the mid-'70s. It's been a great occupation that mates well with other activities. In that it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's you put in the hours, but your schedule can be very flexible. So it's been very accommodating for child rearing, theater, other activities.
Have you been involved in theater consistently over the years, or did you, like the others, take a break?
No, I did one show in high school. A girlfriend dragged me to an audition. I got cast. She didn't.
Did that go over very well with her?
I don't
things
recall
go well
our
in that
relationship surviving that development. And then nothing until I moved to Groton. And in '87, I started with the Groton Theater, and I've been.
So you did one show in high school,
yeah,
and then how old were you when you got involved in the Groton Theater?
It was 20 years later.
So one high school show, and then 20 years goes by, and what made you decide?
Well, I had subscribed to the Groton Herald, which is the local weekly, and there was an audition notice there for Arsenic and Old Lace, and it said looking for new and unusual talent. And I thought this would be a great way to meet some locals. You know, we just moved in. This would be great. So I met a lot of people. That was great. But the theater just took hold of me at that point. I've done at least 2 or 3 shows every season since then.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's for a long period of time. That's because you said
Since
mid-'80s.
87.
Right?
Yeah.
87.
Yeah.
And what made you? What struck your interest about this play?
So I hadn't read Heroes, but when I heard that it was a small ensemble and about World War I with 3 veterans, that intrigued me, being a veteran myself, that it would be something I'd want to go for. And indeed, it's borne out. It's been a great experience. It is continuing to be a great experience. And I love the dynamics between the 3.
So you mentioned you were a veteran. Where did you serve?
I was a naval corpsman during Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
I didn't actually make it to Vietnam, which I thank everyone for in my past experience. But I worked with people returning from Vietnam as a corpsman in psychiatry.
Did you find that experience is helpful as you look at these characters and what they're going through?
Very much. Being able to recognize and work with different kinds of idiosyncrasies really stood me in good stead.
So have you gotten into the script and started working with your fellow actors, what have you enjoyed about working on this play so far?
Oh, I love Gustav's crustiness. I love his acidity, his desire to poke an open wound, create the open wound, and then poke it again and again and again.
Pour a little lemon juice in that wound.
and rub the salt. I just love that. His use of language. I think he's at heart a poet.
Yeah.
And a dreamer, even though he pretends not to care about anything outside of himself. He's playing with words all the time and using them assiduously and effectively, I think.
Yeah. Now, on the poster for the play, there's a picture of a dog. I think a dog statue with a helmet or something on him. Can you tell us about the dog?
Yes. Well, he's steady and reliable. A good friend. You don't leave a good friend behind. Right. So he's going to go with us wherever we go.
So Gustav, he feels very strongly towards this dog.
Well,
and it is a statue.
It is a statue, and it's not something he holds against the dog.
Of course not.
They're both kind of dreamers. They both have a steady gaze into somewhere else, future, somewhere else mostly. Yeah. And he'll spend a lot of time on the terrace with the dog, who doesn't have a name apparently.
Right.
Doesn't need one. Yeah. Staring off at the poplars.
Does that make him think of, all right, I'm going to get out of here, I'm getting out of this place, or is it more of, I just want to think of the future?
Yeah, no, getting out implies movement.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that.
Okay.
He doesn't go anywhere. He's formed a fierce loyalty to the threesome. He may have his difference, and he does have his differences with Henri, but they're his men. I mean, they're a threesome, and when it comes to contemplating leaving their terrace and the home, he's not going anywhere without them. He's going to carry the invalid on his back, as much as he doesn't really care for that. They are his family. They are. It's the military way. You form fierce loyalties. You're going to cover each other's back. Whether you personally like someone or not doesn't matter. You're all committed, and you're brothers.
Right. And what do you think that people would find interesting coming to see this show?
It is hilarious, as it's already been pointed out, and poignant. There are true feelings expressed in ways you don't expect, but the language is, to Stoppard's standards, is just amazing.
Yeah. Now, there's so many options that people have for entertainment. Now you can stream things on your mobile device, and you can see movies and all these things. So why should people go to see live theater?
Well, if they don't know me as a performer, they should certainly come to, and I can think of no other better reason than watching me on stage.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, no, actually, it's a great ensemble, and Ed's waving his hands, and he wants me to mention that he's a great director, and so Theater 3 is always a great experience. It is.
Yeah.
It is very entertaining, and also the way we're staging it is that it's going to be a much more intimate experience than our usual proscenium stage-bound productions. It's going to be on the floor with closer to the raked audience area, so you're going to be right on top of the performers. It allows the performer to register so much more subtly the things that are going on between the characters and within each character. You're not going to miss anything.
I'm sure it's moving that way when you're that close to the actors.
It is. It is.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I want to thank our guests today for coming to Welcome to the Theater and telling us about their show, Heroes, which opens first weekend in June at Theater 3. And finally, Ed has brought a couple of things that are going to be part of the exhibit at the theater. And so, Ed, what have you got here? Well,
we're going to have an extensive exhibit of World War I items that my grandfathers brought back, and I just brought a couple of them here today. You can see the World War I helmet that one of them wore. This is a German camouflage helmet, and you can see quite a different design. And this is one of the bayonets that we're going to have on display during the intermission.
Oh, those are great. Well, I hope people come and see this show. Theater 3 is putting a lot of work into it, and it sounds like you've got a great cast and a really good opportunity for people to see live theater.
Well, thank you so much, David, for your help today.
Thanks.